Hello, Pastor Ingrid here, of course. I'm using my computer camera instead of my phone camera because for some reason the phone camera is not working. So let me see, I'm going to turn up my volume a little bit, see how this works. I had it set up for the other. I think that works okay. Welcome to Adult Forum. And I think from now on, Adult Forum will be either pre-recorded and posted before Sunday, or it will be live streamed like this with no audience, just to keep everybody safe. So we're talking about Advent. Why Advent and not Christmas in December? And you might be able to tell I have my Advent stole on. Advent begins next Sunday. This is the final Sunday of the church year, Christ the King Sunday. Lutherans are currently one of the few Christian churches that keenly observe Advent as a month-long 4-Sunday preparation for Christmas. Episcopalians and Roman Catholics also observe it with us. It's been tricky, I think, to sustain this observation of Advent, especially in the last 40 to 50 years, as Christmas has been celebrated earlier and earlier, right after Halloween, it seems like now, and people, parishioners who are unfamiliar with observing Advent, celebrating the season of Advent, are surprised that if they come into a new Lutheran church that they're starting to attend, why it's not decorated for Christmas beginning in December. The church season of Christmas actually is 12 full days, the 12 days of Christmas. There's a song titled that for a reason. It begins on Christmas Day and it goes through January 5th. In many parts of the world, January 6th, the day of the Epiphany, the Festival of Epiphany, on which we celebrate the Magi finding their way to the child Jesus and bringing gifts, is a bigger celebration for Christians, and especially in Latin countries around the world. Epiphany, Three Kings Day, that is much bigger than the celebration of Christmas for many Christians around the world. It makes sense. We celebrate, we share gifts with each other as the Magi share gifts with Jesus. But for many of us, Christmas has, and I should also say, Easter. Every Sunday is a little Easter. Okay, back. There was the Scandinavian Germanic pagan festival of Yule, J-U-L, Yuletide. There was the ancient Roman celebration of Saturnalia, and there was, around Jesus' time, they were celebrating the Invictus Sol, the nativity, the birth of the sun, S-U-N God, Sol. And so that was celebrated on December 25th. So Christians decided then to create a festival. We really don't know when Jesus was born. We don't have any idea, and the Christians who developed the celebration of Christmas knew that. But we chose a time of year that we could bend the current religious festivals out there in culture to something meaningful for us Christians. And so we chose to do it right around the winter solstice on the celebration of the sun god, but now we celebrate the birth of the S-O-N, not the birth of the S-U-N. So we Christians developed Christmas. 12 days beginning December 25th. It always breaks my heart a little bit when I see Christmas trees out on December 26th, because I think we have 11 days to go, let's celebrate Christmas, which is one of the reasons to celebrate Advent for the month of December and keep Christmas the festival that it is for Christians, 12 days of Christmas, and not kind of follow the cultural pressures, but keep our own traditions. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you? The color for Advent is blue, deep blue of the night sky. The color for Christmas is white. That is the color reserved for the kind of the most special Christian holidays. Easter is white. It was the fabric that's kind of the most treasured because it's so easy to dirty, and so white was really treasured, and so that's what the Christmas season is, the color of white. Usually we have decorations of gold, lame, gold, metallic gold thread in our paraments and stoles to kind of mirror the majesty of Jesus. And just as there's a season of preparation before Easter, called Lent, there's a season of preparation before Christmas, called Advent. The mood for the season is hope and expectation. We celebrate during Advent the final advent of Jesus, coming at the end of time, whenever that may be, whether we blow up the world or the world comes to an end because of a meteor or because God decides it's the time for the end of the world to come. However it happens, at the end of the world, Christians have trusted that there is something called the last day. We borrow it from our Jewish cousins. We also call it the Day of Judgment. And for Christians, it is a time to hope for, to anticipate. And as I mentioned in my sermon today, it was a day that developed eventually historically, to speaking of it from a historical viewpoint, this Day of Judgment came because faithful Jews, trusting in a just God, understanding God to be in control of everything, looked around and noticed that people were doing evil things, destroying, harming, and were getting away with it, not being held accountable, and not being punished for it, and also actually seeming to get blessings out of it, retaining power, gathering riches. And so Jews developed this understanding, well, if they're not held accountable to God in this world, then in the next world, at the end of this world, they'll be held accountable to God. And so we Christians also, that understanding was passed down, as many were, from our Jewish cousins to Christians. We as Christians understand the king who will judge in the end to be the slaughtered lamb on the throne. So we understand that God is merciful, not avoiding accountability, holding us accountable, but offering mercy to us. And so we we know the final answer on Judgment Day. We're guilty, we're sinful, there's no way to avoid that. Even following Jesus, there's always be that sinner part of us, but we know we'll be forgiven. And so particularly when Christians have suffered in this world and have no recourse, have no power to take action, there has been a huge sense of comfort and anticipation of the last day, the Day of Judgment. And also, we are invited to look to it as anticipating a wedding feast, that finally sin will be done, evil will be gone, the sin in me even. I look forward to the end of that. So we look forward to the end of sin, it to be judged and done away with, even that part of me that's sinful. So we anticipate it. It's a day of celebration. It's a day that we don't have to fear. The sinner in us does, but not the saint that trusts God for God's forgiveness, that trusts the slain lamb on the throne. We look to that day as kind of a wedding feast, being joined with God in a very way that's beyond our grasp in this world, and just a celebration, joy, goodness, mercy, the unity. We could use a little bit of unity these days over the past number of years in our world and in our country. That is, will all be one in God, in Christ, the God that we know in Christ. So the mood for the season of Advent, looking to the last day, is anticipation, expectation, the end of sin and evil, including in me. And we celebrate then Jesus coming back, finally. We understand a threefold advent of Christ. The initial, the original coming in the person of Jesus, born as a baby, as a human being. We trust that Christ comes to us in the present through the word, through the gospel, and through the sacraments, baptism and communion, that Christ comes to us, doesn't just wait, didn't just come, 2,000 years ago and whenever the end will happen, but comes to us now through the word and sacraments. So Jesus came as a human, I should say God came as a human in the person of Jesus. God comes to us now in word and sacraments, and God will come in the end as Christ the King, judging, and we anticipate that. One of the prevalent images of Advent, and it's actually my favorite season of the church year, because I think that we as Christians live more of our days expecting Christ to come. And then there are those times that we have just the sense of Christ's presence. When the word strikes our hearts, the Holy Spirit works faith. When we have that experience of living faith through the word and through the sacraments and receiving communion, the living Christ coming to us, and we have that experience. So we experience Christmas and Easter in glimpses. This is my experience. I think it's many Christians' experience. We have that in glimpses, but we don't live most of our life with that intimate sense of God's presence. But we do live expecting God to be present, coming to us in the word and sacraments and coming to us at the end. And so that's why it's one of my favorite seasons, because it reflects the reality of living as a believer in the world, living with anticipation and expectation. So, light in the darkness. The Advent wreath embodies this as the time grows closer to the winter solstice, as it gets darker in December, the 4 weeks before Christmas Day, the 4 Sundays before Christmas Day. We continue to, as the world gets darker, we light more lights. So we light 1 candle the first Sunday in Advent, 2 candles the second Sunday in Advent, 3 candles the third Sunday in Advent, and 4 candles the fourth Sunday in Advent. Did I do that right? Yeah. Let's see. In the mid-17th century in Germany, there was some practice in the home of doing this. We really don't know when the practice of Advent clearly happened. There are some legends that it happened, that it became popular in an orphanage in Germany in the 20th century or in the 19th century, and that could be true. We do have little pieces of history where we see that it occurred. Mid-17th century was one of the times that the Advent wreath became used in Germany, 1600s, used in the home. Also mid-20th century, and then after World War II, In the United States, many Lutheran churches began keeping Advent together as a community and having a communal Advent wreath, which we do here at Zion. The Advent star is another image. Stars falling from the night sky is one of the readings, the scriptural readings from Advent. The stars falling, Jesus' final Advent, the kind of being an image of the last day, stars falling. So from Mark 13, we have, but in those days, after the suffering, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give light, the stars will fall from the heavens, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken, and they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. This was kind of the understanding of the three-tiered universe that I mentioned a few weeks back, where stars were kind of little cutouts between earth and heaven so that we could get we got little pictures of heaven, and then heaven was above the earth, and so Jesus comes from the heavens back down to earth. So the Advent star is Moravian. It was originally, we see it as at the top of weather vanes in the 1730s. Christ as the morning star. In 1821, there was a 110-pointed star hung in a courtyard in a Moravian school in Germany to celebrate the school's 50th anniversary, 1821. And it imagines both the Bethlehem star that hung over where the manger lay from Matthew 2. The O antiphons, possibly from the 5th century, were sung during Vespers, sung before and after the Magnificat during the daily prayer of Vespers, evening prayer. It is made very well known. You probably know it if you've been in a church that celebrated Advent. O come, Emmanuel. There are actually 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. There are 7 stanzas of 7 antiphons, 7 stanzas, and O come Emmanuel is one of them. O come, O branch of Jesse free, O come. There are 7 images of the end coming. So images for Advent, light scattering darkness, that's the general one. Stars falling, as I mentioned, the morning star. I didn't mention this, but that's the nickname for Venus. It appears in the east. It's the right before sunrise. You can see Venus quite clearly. So it heralds the coming of morning. So the morning star, or Venus, heralds the coming of morning. So night turning into day. The images are just amazing. And I think that anybody who experiences depression, whether in a kind of situational way or an ongoing kind of chemical way, that a number of people struggle with depressions in their makeup, in their genetic makeup, even times of suffering when life seems very dark, these images of light and of the morning star and can really provide comfort and a sense of that anticipation and hope. Another image is a branch springing from Jesse's dead stump, Jesus being the branch, the rose, and also the rose growing in the desert. In the desert shall blossom a rose at the coming of the glory of God, from Isaiah. John the Baptist, prepare the way of the Lord, is another image used. In the 16th century, when we have a number of hymns that were created that Lutherans use for Advent, there was the Palm Sunday image, because they had a 1-year cycle of readings, and the reading in Advent, the readings, one of the readings was a Palm Sunday image of Jesus entering Jerusalem. So Jesus coming into his last days, into the death. So I think that, let's see, when the history, I'll briefly mention a few more things about the history. I mentioned the the Western Christian celebration of the Nativity fast, December 25th. And so 40 days of preparation for the Nativity, the birth of Jesus. It's not known when the period of preparation for Christmas that's now called Advent first began. We know we have hints from it from even in the year 480. And we have more writing from the year 567. There was a council that met in the city of Tours in France, and monks were ordered to fast every day in the month of December until Christmas. It wasn't practiced in medieval times very much. Since approximately the 13th century, the usual liturgical color in Western Christianity for Advent has been violet, purple, but we changed that to blue, also kind of echoing the night sky, and to separate it, distinguish it from the color of Lent, which is also purple. The liturgy of Advent remained relatively unchanged in the Roman Catholic Church until the Second Vatican Council, which in 1963, which included some minor changes for it. And I think around the 70s and 80s and 90s, there was a distinction between the different Sundays in Advent. The Sunday of hope and the Sunday of expectation and the Sunday of joy, the third Sunday. And so there's sometimes a pink candle. The readings have a more joyous joyous tone. And so there was also the Shepherd Sunday, the Angel Sunday. There are all sorts of different things that Lutherans, Episcopalians, and Roman Catholics have done to try to teach Advent to children. The Joy to the World actually is an Advent. It's in the Advent section of hymns in our hymnal. So my encouragement is to give space to Advent, not just to keep a tradition, but because I think we existentially need to make space for that yearning, for that experience that we all have of living in darkness, and for Christ giving us hope in the darkness, and for Christ being our light in the darkness, before we move to the unadulterated joy of Christmas. I think having time and space to experience a sense of yearning and to notice the darkness in our world and in ourselves, I think it's really existentially helpful for Christians to do. So I encourage you to note Advent and keep Christmas, and maybe don't throw your Christmas tree or take down Christmas. So why not celebrate all 12 days of Christmas? And be countercultural, be a bit rebellious. And our culture can do things, and that's fine. We don't have to condemn them. Culture can do whatever they wish. But we Christians have always taken what is happening in culture and bent it in a way that's meaningful for us. So why not keep Advent and also Christmas? God's blessings and peace be with you. We will not have Adult Forum next week. We return in December. And as I mentioned, it will either be pre-recorded and posted, or I will do it live stream. God's peace be with you.